Hi, welcome to Tech Talks. Today's Tech Talk is part of our Retail Cybersecurity series. Our first part of the series focused on digital credit card skimming. This is the second part and is focused on another fast-growing trend in online fraud, which is account takeover. The latest data on ATO fraud in the US should be a real concern to anyone engaged in online commerce. We've put together these best practices for catching these attacks. We want you to leverage them to keep up with consumers' expectations for a safe and streamlined experience. I'm Mary Chen, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Splunk. Joining me today is Gleb Esman, our Senior Security Strategist specializing in fraud management. With his background in e-commerce and the financial and banking space, Gleb has a cross-industry view of risks, what the issues are, and how you think about fraud management in a Splunk context. Today's agenda will cover the latest data on ATO fraud and how Splunk can help to detect and monitor for these kinds of attacks. We'll also go over additional resources available to you to take advantage of anomaly detection and link analysis capabilities in Splunk. Our team is available to answer your questions throughout the session. Please use the Q&A widget within your screen to ask any questions. Now let's get started. According to latest research, account takeover fraud attacks have been on the rise for a couple of years. We saw a major spike in 2019, which caused losses of close to $17 billion to consumers and online retailers in different industries. What's truly alarming is how hard it is to detect and reverse account takeover because of the attack's potential to access several other online accounts, such as your bank accounts, retirement savings, and financial assets. That's because many of us use variations of the same login credentials across a broad range of websites. However, there are proven techniques for catching the attack. In many cases, attackers leave traces of their malicious activity and behavior that could be detected and monitored, and that's where Splunk comes in. The best point to detect account takeover is at login by analyzing access activity. Because once the attacker gains access to an account, it becomes more difficult to detect fraudulent behavior. But once the attacker gains access, how do you detect it? You would need to analyze user behavior patterns. Look for subtle changes in account settings, such as phone numbers, emails, and addresses. Pay special attention to money movement that occurs after a login from a new device or location and after account settings were changed. If you notice two or more of these signs in your customer data, it could signal an account takeover, and you should investigate right away. Gleb will now cover these techniques in more detail and show us how to apply them in Splunk.
Hi, I'm Gleb Esman. I'm Staff Security Strategist at Splunk. And today I'm going to show you and demonstrate how account takeover cyber attacks could be detected with Splunk with different dashboards and applications. So first, what is account takeover? So account takeover happens when malicious third party is trying to get access to somebody else's user account. It could be an online account or some sort of other account. And there are two main phases when account takeover could be detected within the data. First, it's during the actual logins, attempted logins, when third party is trying to get access to user account. And then second stage or second phase by behavior, when we notice that user is not behaving in its typical manner, which means it's probably somebody else, or it's possible that somebody else has gained access to user account and then trying to do something malicious. So here's a slide I borrowed from my recent conference presentation. And it talks about how we can detect phase one account login, suspicious login attempts. So a couple points here. First, with Splunk analyzing the data, we can detect suspicious metrics such as quantity or frequency, like too many logins per certain time frame, too many connections, too many password changes, or too many accesses from the single IP to multiple user accounts. Or opposite, a single IP is trying to hit multiple user accounts within a short period of time, which also could signify malicious attempts. The methods could also include detecting of geolocations. For example, attempt to access to user account from geo-region, which is unusual for that user. And one of the tools I'm going to talk about today, and I'll show you the demos, is called SigBay Link Analysis Visualization. And it's a free visualization that was developed by one of our Splunk partners, and it's currently published on Splunk Base. And SigBay Link Analysis is a very powerful interactive analytical tool that helps you to understand the data and detect all kinds of suspicious activities and anomalies within the data sets. SigBay Link Analysis could be downloaded for free from splunkbase.com. It's a Splunk application, and it could be installed on top of Splunk Enterprise, and it's also available within the Splunk Cloud if you have a Splunk deployment within the cloud. Now let's talk about the data. What kind of data we need to detect account takeovers? Typically we need web traffic data or clickstream data. This data set would record every single interaction with any outside actor trying to log in to our web application or web portal. So it could be legitimate users, it could be bots, or it could be malicious actors. So what kind of data elements we will have available within such data set? So first we need to have source IP address that shows us who is trying to who is trying to do something within the web application. So it's a source IP. Typically this source IP could be resolved in a country, region, and city. It gives us a little bit more context of what's the source of where the traffic is coming from. Then it could be session ID. Session ID would be kind of long number assigned by web application to each source request. Then it could be username. If there is a login attempt or successful login, then the username will be somehow associated with the session and possibly with IP address. Sometimes data like that would contain characteristics of a user device, like even screen resolution or what kind of browser user is using. And then there will be some data elements like HTTP method, what kind of method is being executed on web application, a status that reported by web browser, by web server, page that user is trying to access. And it could be many more elements, obviously timestamp, and it could be payload like source data sets that user browser is sending to the server and what server is replying with and this kind of stuff. But it's important to have these basics available, like I'm showing on the screen, like source IP, session ID, username, HTTP method, status code, and page that user is trying to access. So these are essential elements that would help us to detect potential account takeover attempts. Now, if you notice, I have an action field here. So action is typically kind of derivative field that is being calculated after we have the data set. And we can calculate actions could be such as login success, logout, login failed, trade securities. If we're talking about financial portal, for example, there could be actions like money movement, trade securities, deposit check, or bill payments. And this is very important. So action is kind of like high-level understanding what is user is trying to do, and having a set of actions that our user is executing on behalf of a session now could give us important understanding of if this session is suspicious or is it legitimate user is trying to do typical actions on behalf of his account. Let's go to a couple demos where I can show you how all these pieces comes together. So this is the first dashboard that we built that ingested the data set, web traffic data set. And as you see, there is a table that shows the familiar elements that we need: source IP, country, username, status, URI. It's a page that user is trying to access. There are a couple of fields for username. First is username tried, and then username. Username tried is attempted to access to user account detected, and if username is populated, it means the attempt was successful. So in this case, we can see the line where username try is admin, but username is empty here, which means somebody from, and I could go to the country column and see somebody from Norway is trying to access admin user account, but was unsuccessful. The dashboard like this also would be helpful when it would contain the time chart. So it's a representation of activity or number of events or traffic coming to our web server over time. So we can see maybe there will be suspicious spikes here, and we can zoom in into a specific time frame to understand what's going on here. And there is also another time chart that helps us to investigate specific events. To investigate this data with the help of link analysis visualization, we need to add this data set to accelerated data model. And a Splunk administrator could do it. Basically, you create a data model, you populate it with index where the web traffic is coming in, and you can see within this data model there are the same fields that are present within the web logs. So once admin configured all the necessary parts here, we can activate link analysis visualization, and it looks like that. So instead of table, I enabled link analysis, and we can see the same fields are available here, like source IP, country, usernames, page, and status code, and so on. One of the reasons that we needed to add data to accelerated data model is to calculate aggregate functions automatically. And that's what link analysis visualization does for us. So as you can see here, there are a couple elements. I zoomed in a little bit to make it more emphasized. There are a couple aggregate functions that link analysis calculates for us automatically. First one is the number of events. Second one is the number of bytes transferred. And third one is number of usernames accessed. And they are color-coded differently. So let's kind of to explain how it works, I hover over the source IP address, like first one. And you can see first number is 19.3 thousand. It means that this IP address generated 19.3 thousand events on our web server, which means like 19,000 hits basically. Second number, 46.1 megabytes. That's amount of data is being transferred by the user browser. And the third number, number 2, it's a number of user accounts that this IP address is trying to access to. So is it suspicious? Maybe, but that's very useful information for us to have available. So let me show you now how link analysis visualization works. It's a really amazing tool. So let's say I want to understand my data. I want to see users that have been logged into my system. So I see there is a column here called logged in. And when the value of it equal to 1, it means all successful logins are here. So I want to see all my successful logins. I can just click on this number, number 1 under the logged in column, and link analysis visualization goes to Splunk, retrieves data, and then shows me the results here. So basically, now I see all my successful logins. These are all usernames. These are, let's say, these are all my IP addresses where successful logins are originated from. These are all pages that have been touched by successful logins. Mostly it's like obviously login.php or something like that, it's the initial login page. These are all browser types that are being used by people who were successfully logged in. So let's say I want to investigate further. Each column automatically sorted by the most active node first. So for example, if I go to source IP column, this IP address generated most of successful logins compared to anybody else. So I can see there is a little number 59 above it, which means this IP address generated 59 logins. So I want to see exactly what this IP address was doing besides login. So what I can do, I can just click on this IP address. Visualization dynamically in real time goes to accelerated data model, retrieves data, and return it here. So now I can say, okay, this is coming from United States. That's accept language parameters that being used by the user browser, and that's username that this IP address was logged in successfully as. These are the status codes generated, number of bytes transferred. That's what kind of browser is being used by this user, and I can see all the pages that this user was accessing on my system. The visualization also have undo feature. So there is like little icon where I can undo my action and return back to the previous steps if I want to do something else or understand some other filters that I want to look at. So I can undo and redo, and I also can check other user accounts, for example, or other IP addresses. So I can, after I finish with this one, I can now click on next one and see, okay, what's went on behalf of that IP address, what this actor was trying to do in my system. Link analysis visualization also has this little reset icon. If I want to clear up my investigation and start from the beginning, I can just click this icon and all connections will disappear. So let me show you something else. Interesting feature is sorting here. I can do custom sort for every single column I have here available. So in this case, I go and click this drop down under source IP and click sort by aggregate usernames global. What it means, it will now sort IP addresses instead of number of events by default. It will show me IP that tries to access most user account on top. So this IP, for example, I see access 26 user account and so on. So what I want to do now, I want to find IP that successfully logged in to most user accounts. So I go to logged in, click on 1, which means show me only successfully logged in traffic. And these IPs automatically will be sorted by the ones that access most user accounts. So I see this IP address on top, 76.14 and so on, successfully logged into 3 user accounts. So I want to see which user accounts this guy is actually logged on. So I can click and hold, and link analysis will pull the data relevant to this specific IP address for me. So I can say, okay, so the guy is coming from Canada, and from United States, and he logged into this 3 user account. One is Gregory and 2 is Spartan, but they're like lowercase and uppercase. And I see that this person used the same browser user agent, so it might be a legitimate user, just have 2 different user accounts on my system. And I want to see exactly what this IP address was using over time in my system. So in this case, I can click on this IP directly. Splunk will load all this data to link analysis and look at this time chart. So it's called investigative time chart. And whenever I click something on this link analysis, it connects to another panel in the same dashboard and allows to visualize data this way. So now I see there is like couple red spikes here. That's actual activity events specific for this IP address. So upper side of this time chart shows the global data, like all traffic data that come into my server. And the lower part of this time chart shows only traffic related to my filters here. So for example, if I want to say, okay, I want to see only traffic related to Gregory account coming from this IP address, what I can do, I can select Gregory together with this IP address, click on this nodes again, and now the data on this time chart will show me only traffic related to this specific filters that I selected. This IP and Gregory, and these red bars on the time chart will show me only associated specific traffic to what I requested here. So now that we see how link analysis visualization works, how we can detect account takeovers with it. So let's ask a question. I want to find all IP addresses who unsuccessfully tried to log into multiple user accounts, who failed to log into multiple user accounts. So let me reset visualization and do it visually. So I want to find all my traffic that failed to log in, logged in equal to 0. I want to find the traffic that tried to log in, which I have to deselect this null username tried. And I want to sort all my IP addresses by number of usernames they try to log in. So once I establish this filtering and selection criteria, I can just click on this 0, which means logged in equal to 0 failed logins, and wait until the data will get populated by link analysis. So here's my answer. In the source IP column, I see all the IP addresses, basically worst offenders. They are by default sorted by IP addresses who try to unsuccessfully log into many user accounts. So I can see that this first guy tried to log in to 25 different user accounts. So I can click on this IP and see exactly what he was trying to do. So I clicked on IP address, and I see that traffic is coming from Netherlands, and these are all the user accounts that this entity is trying to log in, and this is a browser user agent this IP address was using, and I can see also the traffic pattern of this IP address across this timeline. So I can do undo of these steps, and just to emphasize, all these IP addresses in this column are try to log in unsuccessfully to multiple user accounts. 25 different accounts, 17, 14, and I can click on any of this and see exactly what they're trying to do, which account they're trying to access, where they're coming from. So this IP, for example, tried to hit 12 different user accounts coming from Turkey, and that's a browser user agent they're using, and they all failed. Here we saw how easy it was to discover, with the help of link analysis visualization, attacking IP addresses, IPs that are trying to maliciously access multiple user accounts. Now I want to detect account takeovers a little bit from the different angle. I want to find potential user accounts that are under attack here, which means user accounts that are trying to get access by multiple IP addresses. So in this case, I have to ask questions a little bit differently. So let me reset everything on link analysis visualization. And I want to drag source IP column. Yes, you can drag columns here as well, and place it next to the username tried. And I want to sort username tried by left total links. Left total links, which means show me relationship between the usernames and IP addresses. Once I did this sorting, link analysis visualization accessed data and calculated for me this relationship. And it is represented by the gray number next on the left side of usernames. So I see that admin account being accessed by 2,328 different IP addresses. So clearly admin account is under attack here. And I can see specific of that. So I can click on admin account and see what kind of data link analysis will show me on behalf of admin account. So on this time chart, I see in the red part of it, there are distinctive spikes across timeline. So that's probably when attacks most occur for this user account. And because the data is being sorted by all columns by the number of events, I can automatically see which IP address is being the most aggressive in terms of attacking my admin accounts. Like all of these are bad IPs. They're trying to unsuccessfully log into my user account. You see all they coming through 0, logged in equal to 0, which means unsuccessful. But let's click on this bad IP, worst IP on top here. So I clicked on this. I want to see what's going on. It's coming from France, and it's trying to access admin account, lowercase and uppercase. And I see which browser user agent is being used by this IP address. And I can see this pretty consistent traffic pattern that's shown by this time chart. What's also interesting to notice here, there is pretty big numbers pretty much against every user account I have, like 948, 772, 400, and so on. And it's kind of fact of life. Whenever we have a web server online with legitimate user accounts who use in our system, there will be attackers coming from different countries. There will be bots that are trying to log in and see if they're successful and do this malicious activity. So ability to detect it, visualize it, and understand this kind of behavior on our system is essential. And Splunk can really help to do that. Now let's talk about the second phase of account takeover detection by user behavior. Assuming that a malicious actor gained successful access to user account and he's trying to do something bad, how we can detect it. Remember in the beginning I mentioned the data set, and there is a column called action. An action could be login success, login failed, money movement, edit profile, forgot credentials, and things like that. So having this view on what kind of action is user trying to do will help us to analyze behavior and detect suspicious activity here. User actions are also associated with a session ID. So if we have a combined set of user actions under a certain session, and these actions were login fail, then change passwords, then money movement, this might signify some sort of suspicious activity on behalf of specific session. And then Splunk could assign or calculate risk score for such sessions and even calculate potential risk exposure. For example, if sessions deemed to be suspicious and there is a certain money movement occur, like bill payment or security trading, and knowing this amount of dollars that this session touched, we can calculate approximate risk score for the given session. So this is a dashboard, another dashboard, that takes advantage of this action field and risk exposure and some other metrics. But basically, there is a commonality with the previous dashboard. We still have source IP and countries and URIs and so on. But now we have actions and risk exposure. And we also added a button. For example, I want to sort all my sessions by risk exposure. So I can click this button and Splunk will render link analysis visualization where sessions are sorted by the risk exposure. So for example, this first session on top of this list shows combined risk exposure of $36,000. So what it means, I want to understand why this session is considered to be risky, what was going on behalf of this session. So I clicked on it, and the data is being shown to me in the action column, shows everything that was happened on behalf of this session. So I can see there is a login fail, then login success, and then I see edit username, I see forgot credentials, and then I see bill payment and some sort of money movement. So this sequence shows me that it's kind of suspicious behavior. Somebody forgot password and then logged in and then changed account settings such as username and then tried to move money away from this user account. So this does signify some sort of suspicious activity that I want to understand, I want to see it visualized so it would be easy for me to access and respond on this type of event. I have second session ID here with the risk exposure of $28,000. So I can click on that session to try to understand what was going on here, what kind of action user is trying to do here. So I see again, user logged on, and then he immediately added profile settings, and then he tried to trade securities. Maybe a little bit less risky than previous one, but it's still worth attention to investigate, to make sure that there is nothing malicious happen on behalf of this user account, especially considering it's coming from like Argentina. It's not non-typical country perhaps for a typical user of US bank. And then, of course, we can go back to the previous ideas. We can filter and sort data by different metrics. For example, I can ask a question, show me IP addresses that try to initiate most sessions within my banking portal. So I clicked on it, does sorting. I can see, okay, this IP address generated access in 16 different sessions. So that might be a little bit too excessive. Again, it's worthwhile to check this kind of behavior on a system to detect potential account takeovers. So I hope you found this session useful, and please check SIGBay link analysis visualization on Splunk Base. Again, it's a free download built by one of our good partner, and they could help you to implement and develop custom dashboards that leverage this wonderful technology to visualize and understand your data sets. Thank you.
Thank you, Gleb, for the presentation and demo. Before we wrap up, I wanted to share some additional resources available to you to take advantage of anomaly detection and link analysis in Splunk. You'll receive these assets in a follow-up email as well as this webinar recording. Finally, don't forget that we have an incredible community of Splunk users on our community site. For any follow-up questions, please submit your questions in the discussion section under Tech Talks. Thank you again for joining.